everybody, thank you for joining me today. So we're going to start by using this Simon Says stamp. I've used this flower a couple of times now. I've liked doing these gouache series, this new one that I started. I was using a lot of the color gouache, but this time I decided I wanted to go back to the old faithful, and that's the black watercolor paper with the white embossing powder. So I'm pulling out a couple of cards. Some of these are with the color, and then that's the stamp that we're using today. So I decided, you know what, let's just do an all white version, because I really did like that texture, the richness of the reddish color when we colored it in with the Arteza set that I gotten. But there's nothing like the white and black. I just think it's really pretty, and it doesn't take a whole lot to do it. So I'm going to take my powder and really powder it up really well, only because I want to make sure that none of the white embossing powder gets anywhere else than where the Versamark ink is. Okay, so I'm just pushing this over a little bit. I just want it a little bit more centered, and that's more centered. So I'm going to ink it up using Versamark ink, and I think I wind up stamping this 3 times, definitely 2. It all depends on the texture of your watercolor. This particular watercolor, it's very hard to explain because it's heavy. It's not overly textured, but it just feels like on some of the earlier ones I did, like there wasn't enough embossing powder. Like it just, I don't know how to explain it. So that's why I inked up certain areas again, especially that thank you, just to make sure it's definitely got enough of the ink on it, so that way that powder will stick. So I'm using the Brutus Monroe Alabaster White, and we're just gonna tap this off, and I always hit it from the back, and it's really good. Now, of course, I guess hindsight, if you're going to do white splatters and stuff like that, it probably doesn't matter if you have little bits of white embossing powder here and there. It's just, I find it's a best practice to always use the powder, so that way whether you're using white or gold or whatever embossing powder on whatever paper, you know that it's not going to have a lot of extra embossing all over the place. It'll be nice and neat, and that's what you want. You want a nice and neat looking card to wow and have people go ooh and ah. So once it's all heated up, I take my cloth and I wipe away the extra powder. And, you know, sometimes it takes a couple of swipes just to make sure that it's definitely cleaned off as much as you can. And then I put in, it's going to be hard to see for a while, but in one of the pan sets, I created a Winsor Newton white little pan set. And it stays in there with my Artezas, only because it's the only one I have from Winsor Newton. So I wasn't going to create a whole new pan for just one paint, so I just added it to that pan set. And like I said on previous videos, I'm gonna link at the very end the first 2, because I want to say those I did the black and white. What I find is, as you're putting it down, especially with the white, it seems like it's just a blob of color, right? Just solid, no interest whatsoever. So the key is to put down the darker color where you think like a shadow, or more vibrant color where you think a shadow would be, and then to try and pull water out from that, you know, with the color, so that way it kind of fades and gets lighter. And you can really tell the difference once it starts drying back. And if you are having trouble with that, then just grab your heat tool and kind of dry it off in between, and then go back and add a little bit more of the, you know, bright color in the centers, and then working my way up, or putting it towards the bottom here, and then putting my brush in the water, and then just pulling up from there the pigment. And then I grabbed some more paint to put in the center part, because I wanted that to be darker. Make sense? And then it's still not really all that dark because, like I said, it's going to eventually kind of fade to the back because, you know, once it dries, you can start to see it kind of fade back some. All right, and we're just laying down the color, like I said, towards the center, and then getting just some of the water to pull up a thinner coat of that pigment. And then I wind up having to stop for a brief second, and I'm going to come back and continue on. But I'm coloring the entire thing with the white. So the leaves, the flowers, all of it is going to be with the Windsor white. And see, at this point, all of it had dried back some more. So it was good to give it a break and then come back, because then I could see, okay, well, this is all, even though I had all that bright white in the center, it really died back, you know? So I'm like, okay, now that this is dry, I can go back in certain spots and add more of that color and then let it dry back again. And really, if you have the patience, that's all you keep doing is go add color, let it dry back, and then you can go in and add more color in certain spots wherever you want it to be more of a shadow. If you have the patience to really do all that, you could probably make a really, really pretty detailed flower on your projects. But for me, I like what I do to this point. You know what I mean? I like how I try to make it darker or more vibrant in the center and then pull out the color. The great thing about gouache is that it reactivates with water, right? So you could even do this with sparkle pens, like the Winka Stella or the Nuvo sparkle pens, like the clear. You could take the color and then pull it out with that, and then it'll have a little bit of sparkle. Maybe that'll be the next project, the next attempt with the Gouache series, to show you what I mean. But there's so many options and different things you can do. With the notion that these are operating just like a watercolor. You know what I mean? So once again, you can see I'm just hitting all those spots again and trying to make the areas that I want more vibrant, more of that pure white. And then once I'm happy, I'll stop, grab my heat tool, try and help dry it along. And then I'm going to grab one of my blocks to do some splatters. I guess I felt like I needed to add a little bit more right there. I mean, seriously, you could keep going. At some point, you just got to say, okay, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. It'll be all right. But obviously, I haven't gotten there yet. All right, we're going to dry that one. I think because I came back and I finished that one, I felt like I hadn't given it the same attention as the others, but it'll be all right. So I'm taking my cube of the Winsor Newton and I'm going to wet it up and put some on my little block here and then splatter. And that makes really like a fine mist. And I like the fine mist, but I also like more droplets. So in that instance, I had taken a larger water drop had dropped on the flower, so I just kind of dabbed it up. But when I like to do more of the droplets, I'll grab the white picket fence from Ranger and splatter with that, so it'll give me a little bit bigger droplets. So it's a nice, you know, it's a nice composition of splatter. Some small, some big, you know. And then I'm going to set this off to the side. Once it dries, I created an A2 size card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I put foam tape on the back of my card. And I did that so that way it would be nice and even. The good thing about this particular watercolor paper is that it does not warp like some others, even with the heat embossing. So while I use the foam, sometimes you don't really need it. It just depends on what you're looking for, you know, with the card. I just wanted a little added dimension since I wasn't going to have a mat on this particular. Okay, everybody. So thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and share button, and hit the little bell so that way you get alerted whenever I upload a new video. And I hope you guys stay safe out there. Make sure you're practicing that social distancing. Enjoy all the videos that are popping up on YouTube. You got tons of stuff to watch, and I will see you guys with the next video. Have a good one.